But then a lot of times, these courses that they choose to study, they already make those decisions long before they get to university. So that's why this kind of program is very important, where we can start letting them know the wide ranges of courses that they have. Because one thing is, if the young people do not know the different ranges of careers that are there, it's difficult for them to aspire to it. So what we want to do is to broaden their knowledge and awareness of the different careers that are there, and then how they can, if they choose to aspire to them, they will. But like I said, this slide just shows some of the courses by gender that our young people have been studying. This is from 2019. This showcases all our different universities and how much of the young people are studying the different disciplines. So we can see for some of the disciplines, we have almost an equal range of male and female studying the subject. But then for social sciences, administration, agriculture, pharmacy, that's social sciences, administration, agriculture, we have more of the males dominating those areas, and we have quite a number of females that go into those courses, but more of males still. But courses like the medical sciences, we have more of females that go into those programs, and we have less. So at the same time, we also want to let males that are within our network, in our schools, to know about some of the wider ranges of careers, for example, in the medical field. But like you can see highlighted here, there are 4 of the courses that 4 of the disciplines where we have a very large disparity in gender. So we also want to make sure that within these different disciplines, we are able to showcase different careers that would help to bridge that that gap that is there, and get a more balanced mix of the young people that enter those careers. So you can see for engineering, there's a very, very huge disparity there. We have almost 90% of the students that went into study one or more of the engineering courses in 2019 were males, and we had only about 11%. It might be gradually changing, but yet we're still waiting for some of the more recent data sources to come up. Similar things we have in computing. We have almost 76% males and about 24%. So more males are studying this, but want to get more females in through the pipeline to study some of these careers, or at least open them up to them so that they are aware of it. And for vet medicine, we have more males than females. So these courses, this kind of like showcases why we need to ensure that all our students, irrespective of their gender, are aware of the wide ranges of courses available to them. At the same time, trying to break down stereotypes that specific careers, like for example, engineering courses are mainly for males, rather than females. If a student, if everybody in her class that wants to study engineering is male, then it kind of like starts a program to showcase those ranges and break those stereotypes that some of these courses are open to everyone, irrespective of their gender. So they are aware of those courses. So this is another interactive aspect that I would like your responses or your feedback, or what you think about it. What do you think are the causes of these differences in how our youths are going in to study these courses between men and women in Nigeria? So I would like some responses from our participants. What do you think is the cause of this? Why are we having some of those big gaps across specific courses, and why are others more balanced? Please raise your hand if you would like to speak, or you could drop your responses in the chat box, type in your responses. Do we have anyone that would like to tell us why they think we're having some of those gaps in the studies? Okay, Joseph, you are saying influence of parents and guardians. Yes, that is one of it. It's a huge influence because there's a huge influence, parental, family influence on what people go into school to study. And then lack of information about these courses. Yes, it's very difficult if people don't know about these courses. It's difficult for them to aspire towards it. Okay, we have some people that would like to speak. Kazim, can you unmute your mic? Please go ahead.
Yes, please. Hi, everyone. I think the major cause of... Hello, can you hear me, please?
Yes, I can hear you clearly.
All right. I think the major cause of, having differences in gender is majorly based on stereotype. Okay. And this stereotype has conditioned a particular gender to assume or believe that this course is for me or this course is for female. Growing up, most of us used to expect that any nurse you see would be a female and a doctor would be male. So some of these factors has contributed to the gender disparities that we can see in the choice of course of study. And also, based on what the previous patient has mentioned, availability of information, what the children expect that they will be able to do after leaving school, that will tend to guide the course they will study and aspire to. I think that is my take on that.
Thank you so much, Kazim. You are very right. That aspect of where they see specific roles or specific genders currently in specific careers. So that makes them think that, okay, like you mentioned, male nurses, they're not common. So a lot of times, most nurses that we meet are female. So it's assumed that males are either doctors but not nurses. So that stereotype is real. Thank you so much. And Chimezirim, could you unmute your mic? Let's get your contribution. Thank you, Kazim.
Thank you.
Okay. Good evening. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. Please go ahead.
Okay. I think one other reason that make people why we have disparities of gender is due to the process of getting in. Some persons find it difficult to get some courses because of the bureaucracy of going through JAM. I'm talking in the case of Nigeria, going through JAM, going through the WAEC courses, the headache. They want something easy and simple. So because of that, they try to choose a course that permit my French, last, they will just get admission, kind of. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Chimezirim. So you're mentioning the difficulty in getting courses that they aspire to. So sometimes they may actually aspire to specific courses, but the difficulty in getting on board those courses. Okay, that's one of it. Thank you very much. We also have some of the responses. Ideology, Emmanuel, you mentioned ideology. The different types of ideologies stemming from, for example, females being restricted to specific careers. Okay, yes. Emmanuel Amino, you mentioned poor career orientations and opportunities. Yes, are the opportunities available to specific groups of people, which sometimes could go back to societal constraints. Yes, those are some of them. Please keep them coming. We would like to know your views. We have Bashi mentioning poor awareness. So programs like this help to ensure that our students are more aware of the wide ranges of careers that are there. lack of counselors in school. Thank you very much, Joseph. I think this is also important. So there might not be enough counselors in these schools that help these students to think about what they would like to be. But also, I think as teachers, we can also support that. If it's not available in our schools, how can we as teachers help our students to think about these careers and the wide offer opportunities for them to be able to know about what specific careers people in those careers do, and possibly to know people, Nigerians that are doing those kind of things, so that they can see role models that they could look up to and aspire to those careers. So thank you very much. This is really very interesting. Thank you very much. I would hand over back to Carol to continue with the next few slides. Over to you, Carol.
Thank you very much, Itro. So, as I said in the chat there, it's really interesting to see that the reasons of this gender disparity are the same across our two countries. That's very interesting. I'm going to share with you now a little bit of some research that was carried out by my colleagues here at Northumbria University and also in Nigeria, looking at some of the stereotypes that are present in school textbooks. So my colleagues looked at a range of basic science textbooks that were for junior school, primary schools, and also the junior secondary schools. And they looked through the books to see who was in the pictures in the books, who was mentioned in the text, and then whether that was a man or a woman. And I'm going to share a couple of the results with you. So first of all, they looked at the gender representation in the visuals, in the diagrams and the photographs. And what they found is that overall, men were generally portrayed more in teaching materials. And if the picture was about a STEM field, if it was an engineer or a computer programmer or even a teacher, then it was even more pronounced. So if it was just in the visuals, that 66% of the pictures that involved people involved men, and 34% involved women. And that was about the same. If we look in the text, so this is when the question would be about, or there would be maybe a question, an engineer is doing this, what is he doing? So where the book referred to he as a generic person. And what they found is in that case, he or a male was referred with a male name was referred to 61% of the time, and females or female names were 39% of the time. But then when we look at STEM, when it was a question about science or technology, 91% of the people referred to were male, and only 9% did they use she or female. And that's quite important. And some of the things we were saying was, sorry, there's a little bit of interference. Can everybody make sure that their mics are on? There we go. So what we found there is that...
Please, can you take it back a bit? I think we lost you for a bit there. Okay. So could you take this slide? Thank you.
Okay. So what this first slide shows is that if we're looking at diagrams and photographs in a book, then men are generally portrayed more in the teaching materials in all of the pictures. And then the next slide shows us that where we're talking about the text, where there's a question, so he is doing something or she is doing something, then what we find is that men are represented 61% of the time if it's just a general teaching material. But if it's in about a STEM field, then men are talked about 91% of the time. And this is important. We talked about stereotypes and the stereotypes children are presented with about different jobs and about STEM in general. And what my colleagues found is that even in school textbooks, there's a certain amount of stereotypes being shown. And so it might be interesting for you when you go back to school to look at your textbooks, look at the books that you're using with your children, and see if there is stereotypes portrayed there. And that's one thing that's interesting to look at. I'm going to pass on now to my colleague to tell you about some more research that we've carried out. And Joe's going to talk to you about what we've found about children's perception of scientists.
Thank you, Carol. Are you happy to keep these slides up?
I am, yes.
Real, thank you. So thank you for all your comments so far. We were thinking about this quite a few years ago now, maybe 5 years ago, and we asked children in the northeast of England from one of our schools that we work really closely with to write down 6 words that they would use to describe a scientist, because we were not just interested in those the way that stereotypes are portrayed to children, but also the stereotypes that children have about scientists and what we can do about them. And I'm interested from your context, what if this question was asked in your classrooms, write down 6 words to describe a scientist, what do you think would be the most common words that got used by the children that you teach? So if you could put those into the chat, please, just some of the words, and we'll see if they match, are similar to some of the words that we used. Traveling to the moon, yep, that's a good one. Have we got any others we can think that children might use to describe scientists? Intelligence, having money, so being rich. The idea they invent things and invent specific things, that all scientists are inventing robots. You might have some examples of specific careers, like a lab technician, the idea that they're smart. Boring, yeah, a few children did say boring as well. Yep, excellent examples of specific careers like engineering or sets of careers. They do research. We also did have antisocial as well, yep. Brilliant, Doctor. Yes, so interesting there that a lot of the things that you say that you think your children might say, the children you teach, are similar to the ideas that we got across when we started exploring this idea of what children see as scientists. Carol, can I have the next slide, please? So we got, these are some of our examples. So mad and brainy and clever. So we got lots of examples that were about high levels of intelligence, that you needed special clothes to do science. So test tubes, white coats, being nerdy. We had some really positive things, them being funny or awesome, hardworking and observant. We got that they have to wear special glasses, they have to be careful, they have to be talented. But if we go on to the next slide, what we found was actually when we looked at that whole set of words, so we had, well, a lot of words there, 6 across 450 children, so several thousand words. And when we categorized those words, we found that nearly half of all the words used by all the children could be categorized as some form of stereotype. So that could be a stereotype that had some kind of intelligence in there. It could be about wearing lab coats. It could have been about making things explode, because all children think scientists just blow things up all the time. And when we looked closely at the stereotype words, we then found that of those half, 60% of them, so 30% of the full set of words, were about intelligence, high levels of intelligence, clever, brain box, genius. And we saw this as often quite a barrier here, that if you think scientists are very, very clever people, but you don't associate yourself with being very, very clever, then we worried there was a bit of a barrier there to people wanting to go on and study science and doing science careers. When we looked at specifically girls were more likely to use positive sentiments to describe scientists than boys were. And actually, when children are describing scientists using this write down 6 words, very few gendered words were actually used within the set. And what we wanted to do within our work was to start to replace some of these words, see if we could do something that would remove some of these stereotypes and start to combat them. So we would want a resource that brought down the number of stereotypes that children use when talking about scientists, and looked more at the attributes and skills that scientists need, because those are attributes and skills that children have themselves. And we came up with a set of 15, sometimes 16, depending on when you count them, but 16 on the next slide, different attributes and skills that we felt were important for scientists. And we talked to the scientific community, we talked to communities like the Royal Academy of Engineers here, and checked our skills against the skills they thought that, that scientists and engineers need. So we'll have a look at those skills now. So here we got the full set of characteristics that are useful to be successful in a science or STEM job. And they are characteristics that I think are far broader than just STEM. They're a good set of characteristics that just help our young people in the UK or Nigeria become good members of society. But they're also specific to skills that you would need if you want to study STEM. So we've got things like being collaborative, committed, being a good communicator. Creativity was an interesting one there, because often people don't associate science with creativity, but actually it's an incredibly creative subject. You might be creating new knowledge, or you might be creating new materials. Being curious and asking questions, hardworking, imaginative, logical, observant, being open-minded, ready for new ideas, organized, passionate, patient, which I hope all of your children are all of the time in your classrooms, resilient, self-motivated, and that idea of being tenacious, that we can keep going at something even if we find it challenging, keep sticking to ideas. And so we set out to develop a resource that would help to improve children's understanding of those characteristics and show that they and scientists have those characteristics, and to work out how can we remove some of those stereotypes? How can we get more stereotypical words disappearing when we ask children what those 6 words describe scientists are? And this is something you can quite easily do in your classrooms as well. It's a fairly straightforward study, a fairly simple study, where you just ask the children to write down 6 words, and you don't give them you give them very little information at all, just 6 words to describe a scientist. And you as a teacher can collect those 6 words in and start to have a look at what your class think about scientists. And I would suspect you'll see a lot of the same things, and a lot of the ideas that you put in the chat box, in the chat window, you'll probably see coming across in your classes. I'm going to hand over to Itero now, just to talk a little bit about skills in and identified for Sub-Saharan Africa.
It's me now.
Oh,
so it's okay. So yes, I'm going back to the report from the World Bank that I mentioned earlier. They surveyed a number of business people from Sub-Saharan Africa, particularly sort of 5 countries within that Sub-Saharan Africa, one of which was Nigeria. And they asked the business owners and the managers, what were the skills were they looking for in the people that they employed? And those skills involve things like analytical skills, skills around working hard, like character and behavior. There was digital skills in there and interpersonal skills. And when they ranked the skills, then this is the graph that you get. And the top 10 skills that young people or that employers were looking for are those critical analytical skills, communication skills, problem solving, leadership, collaboration, computer literacy, application of technology, creativity, decision making and reasoning, and teamwork. So we were very encouraged that the skills that employers say that they are looking for are the skills that we include in the resource. And these skills are skills that children can learn. Some of them are what you might call hard skills that take technical knowledge and understanding, and some of them are more soft skills, and by that I don't mean they're easy skills, but they're skills that are more involved with people. And so the resource that we have developed will allow the children and students in your classes to develop and to see where they already have those skills and to think about how they can improve those skills as well. Okay, so that kind of is a bit of a teaser for Joe to describe how teachers can support students to develop those skills and address stereotypes.
Okay, thank you. Carol, if I can have the next slide, please. So what we developed was something that we call STEM Person of the Week, which is a 5-week teacher-led whole school activity. So it happens right across the school and it's led by teachers in the classroom. And within this, we have 5 STEM people who work in the STEM industry, carefully chosen as role models that reflect the diversity and the skills needed for science and technology workforce and the people who work in those fields. So we'd have a set of 5 different people, real people working in the STEM fields, and each one of them would have a set of attributes that went with them. So for example, someone might be working in solar power or solar engineering, and they might have the skills of creativity, hardworking, and being a good communicator. And the teacher would discuss this role model with the class, and then they would praise the students in the class for showing the attributes during the week. So for example, if a child in your class has shown that they're really resilient and your STEM person that week has resilient as one of their characteristics, their attributes, then you'd praise them for showing that skill. And this runs over the course of 5 weeks. And after 5 weeks, they've met virtually 5 different people from a broad range of different STEM jobs with a broad range of STEM attributes and skills. And we ran this.
Hello, Joe. I think we lost you for like 15 when you mentioned resilience. So what you were talking about resilience, I don't think we got that.
Oh yes, okay, sorry, yeah. So for example, if one of the skills that one of the scientists or STEM workers had was resilience, in our classrooms, we would work with the children, and when we saw them being resilient, we would praise that skill. So rather than giving them ticks for doing good work in their science lesson, we're actually praising them for doing, for showing the skills that scientists have. And over the 5 weeks, the teacher would discuss these 5 different scientists. Now, what I'd like to do is show you the effects of it. So I will show you the resource in a moment, I promise. And I just want to show you the effects this had in the schools we're working with. So what we find here is on the left-hand side where we've got the pink columns or the orangey pink columns, that's before the intervention happens. That's before we did the STEM Person of the Week in the schools. And on the green side of each of those set of 4 bars, that's 1 year later. So let's have a look. When we looked at all the stereotypes that children said when they wrote down those 6 words, we went back in a year later and you notice we've dropped from 47% to 32%. So a year later, after using the resource in a classroom, they were using less stereotypical language to describe scientists. That's mainly the general stereotypes. So general stereotypes were things like lab coats and things exploding. We also notice from the right-hand side graph that the intelligence as a stereotype did drop straight away after the intervention, but did start to come back up. And this intervention was a group of children doing 5 STEM workers over 5 weeks, and they then coming back in a full year later. And the way that we're running this in Nigeria is a little bit different, that might address that issue that intelligence seems to creep back up. It's quite a hard stereotype to shift. And if you think about where you see that stereotype, you can begin to understand why it's in films and television and magazines and books. Scientists are pretty much always very, very clever people in those. Okay. So I think it's probably time for me to show you what the actual resource looks like. And we've got an example that Dr. Itter has kindly brought us together, and she is working really hard to pull together a set of people who will become our STEM People of the Week. So Carol, if I could have the next slide. Dr. Itter, if you could help me with this lady's name, because I don't want to pronounce it incorrectly.
Her name is Njideka. Njideka.
So Njideka is an example of one of our first STEM Person of the Week for Nigeria. She's a senior manager innovation. She works in a large mobile telecommunications network company. And if you see, what we have there is the 3 attributes, the 3 skills that she has said she needs to do her job. So she needs to be curious, self-motivated, and resilient, those 3 skills. And in the classroom, you'd print off this and stick it on the wall, and you could show it to all the children. And over the first week, those would be the skills that you want children in your class to show you through the work they do in science or technology, engineering, and maths. So when someone is curious, you praise their curiosity when they ask good questions. If someone in your class is really self-motivated and really kind of get some work done that they find quite hard or difficult, you would praise that self-motivation. Or maybe when they've gone home and done their homework without you having to ask them again and again to do their homework. Or if they've been resilient, you might also praise that within the classroom. And the children can write down the evidence, how they've shown those skills in their class workbook. So here's an example of what it might look like. At the start of the week, you write down a little bit about the person based upon the information from the card. And then, like in Njideka, I am curious, resilient, and self-motivated. And what I've done there is left space for children to write. The children would leave space so they could write in an example. So they might say, I'm curious because this week I researched a new topic that I was interested in. I read some books from about a new topic. Or this week I was resilient because I found Monday's lesson on plants and animals really difficult, but I stuck with it and I had a really good go at it. And by the end of the week, I was able to understand it, even though I felt challenged by it. And the children would write down the things that they have done in order to show those skills. And over the course of 5 weeks, they'll see 5 different scientists, 1 per week, 1 each week, and they'll show a different 3 skills every week. And we really wanted to help to show children that they have already the skills they need. Children are incredibly curious, they're resilient, they're self-motivated, and all the other skills you saw on the other slides as well. And those skills are throughout these STEM Person of the Week resources. And by putting the evidence in their workbooks, they can show how they're doing these skills as well. And we've got a wide range of STEM workers from lots and lots of different STEM disciplines across Nigeria. And if I could have the next slide, please, Carol. Just a few things about how this works best. It works best when your whole school takes part. So not just your class, but other classes in the school as well. What we're going to do is really release a set of 5 STEM People of the Week each term. And you use that set of 5 all together. And then the following school term, you use a new set of 5. So students will meet 15 very different STEM people all the way across the year in a wide range of jobs. What I thought was interesting when we asked that question about what do young people in your classes aspire to be, in some ways, those jobs are very similar to aspirations in the UK, but they're also very narrow. There's very few jobs that children actually know about. You've got your really common jobs, doctors, nurses, vets, lawyers, astronauts. But what we want to do with this resource is to widen what children understand about what a STEM job is. So they can see that there are lots of other types of STEM jobs. And during this resource, they'll meet 15 different people with 15 different jobs over the course of the year. Now, when I said before about what that idea that intelligence is a really common stereotype, that when we did it over 5 weeks, it couldn't shift. It'll be really interesting to see in your classrooms if you see a difference doing this resource 3 times during the school year. I think I'll pass back to Carol now. And please make sure you put any questions in the chat if you want to know a little bit more about how it runs in the school.
So I think this is you now, Itaro.
Okay, thank you very much, Joe. Thank you, Carol. So how this resource is going to work, what we are trying to do is to ensure that not only are we going to try and promote the different careers, we also want the students to be able to see that people that do this kind of careers are people like them. So we are curating, and we have gotten some of professionals in the industry that do this kind of different careers. So we are curating a wide range of careers. We send with a registration link if you to participate in this. So if you are in this session, you would get that link, and then you put in your school, so that once the first set of resources are ready, they will be shared with you. What we are targeting is for it to start once the school session resumes in September. Many of the schools have vacated already, while some are still writing exams, some are vacating next week. So what we are targeting is that we will start this at the beginning of the school year, which is September. So you will get the resources, access to the resources by the 3rd week in September, and then you could start get the 5 different types of careers that you could walk through till the end of the term. And then we hope to continue that across the year. So by the 2nd term in January, you'll get the next set of 5 resources that you could use for the new term, and then the final term. We hope to keep this going year round, and then we'll also put them up on our websites, our TechQuest STEM Academy and our NUSTEM websites. So you could also see some of the additional careers that are there too for use. So you could actually decide which ones you want to use. And then you could now download it for your students or provide access to it for your student. And please be aware that our team, we are on ground to provide support all the way, whichever support that you will need in your school to make sure that you are able to deliver this program. So right now, I think we'll go to questions. If you have questions about this program, we would like to take it, and some of your feedback around the resources and some of the things that you would want regarding these resources. So we'd like to take some questions here. Please indicate by lifting your hands if you have questions around this. Do we have questions around the resource?
I think it's worth just saying.
I have one question, ma'am.
Okay.
Oh, sorry.
Go ahead.
Please introduce yourself, your name, where you are dialing in from, and then ask your question.
Good evening. I'm Ajiboye Ademi from United Senior Secondary School at Google, Ibadan.
Okay.
But I joined.
Go ahead,
I just joined the meeting some minutes back. I just want to ask if you can get the full material for this training, so that we can peruse more, so to understand more on it to have more understanding of it. Can you hear me?
Okay, this will be shared with you. Yes, I heard you, Ajibwe.
Okay.
It will be shared with you at the end of this program. And
Okay.
then also the links if you would want your school to participate in the resources, so that we'll be able to follow your journey and your student journey while they use this resource. So yes, this recording will be made available after this session, and then also the resources will be provided to you.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We have Olufemi. Olufemi, you're lifting your hands. Can you unmute yourself and ask your question?
Okay. Yeah. Good evening, everybody. I just want to know, is this peculiar to just secondary schools, or can it be integrated into higher educational institutions?
It's peculiar to primary and secondary schools, and then for higher institutions, I think it's also useful because particularly for those that still are able to change in the first year, where they are not aware of the wide ranges of courses, and then they need to know some of the things they would need, some of the attributes they will need. But it's mainly focused on primary and secondary schools.
Okay, the second question is, the second thing is, can I share this with my colleagues in secondary schools if they could help?
Yes, please. You can share this with secondary schools. You could share it with your colleagues. And then you could also share our email addresses if they want to get on board, and the links if they would like to get on board.
Okay, fine. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Olufemi. We have Friday Gabriel lifting your hands. Please ask your question, unmute yourself and ask your question. Friday, could you unmute yourself and ask your question? Okay. We have Alabi. Alabi, you could unmute yourself and ask your question.
Good evening. Good evening. Can you hear me?
Good evening, Alabi. Yes, we can.
Yeah. So it's a friend that attended the program in Abuja that sent the link to me. So I just connected. You said I saw you are recording the teachings, but the condition there is, how are we going to get the materials even when we stop, if the Zoom is over? Because I'm not on your WhatsApp page. So how are we going to get the materials?
So everyone that registered for this program, everyone that is in this session, you dropped your email addresses when you logged in. So we will send you the materials for it.
Is it through the email?
Yes, we'll send it to you via email, and then we'll also drop the link to our WhatsApp group. So if you'd like to join our teacher WhatsApp group in the different states, you'll be able to join those groups also.
Be through the WhatsApp call.
Is that okay?
Okay. Yeah, it's okay. Thanks.
Thank you very much. Joseph, you have a question, please? Unmute yourself and take your question.
Okay, good evening. Hello.
Good evening.
Yeah,
Yes.
Okay, those of us that are inclined in languages, I don't know how useful this program is to us. I'm actually not a science teacher, but I'm just interested. I just decided to join.
Okay. Joe, would you like to respond to that?
Did I get Joseph there that you are a languages teacher?
Yeah.
Yeah, so this program was specifically designed for STEM. So it's like science, technology, engineering, and maths. It's something that I assume you could do for languages, but our particular project is focusing just on science and technology, engineering, and maths. So the 3 sets of 5 people that children will see over the course of this year will all be specifically about STEM jobs.
Oh, okay, thank you so much.
So the other thing I would like to add to that, Joseph, some of those attributes, you could actually still get them for people in arts courses, but like we said, the resources would have people based in STEM, but I think some of those attributes are useful across board, irrespective of the course you teach. Okay. All right. Thank you, Joseph. Abiodun, you have a question? Yes, Abiodun, unmute yourself and you could ask your question. Okay. All right, Beatrice, please unmute yourself and ask your question.
Okay. Good evening.
Good
Are you with
evening.
me? Okay. Yes. From
Yes,
the
good
slides.
evening.
Yes, from the slides presented, I noticed that we will be collecting some data. I wanted to know, will we be provided with tools for such data collection, or how do we get the data, and then how do we even give you the data? Will there be tools that will help us in such collections if need to be?
Yes, we will provide links where those pictures can be uploaded. We'd like to see some of the responses from the students, like the pictures of their of the pages of where they write different, how they've gotten, how they've made use of the attributes for the week. So we'll provide links for that, and then if there are difficulties around that, our team are on ground to support you on that. But yes, you'll be able to upload it. And then findings that we will get from the data that we collect, we'll share it with all our teachers. Does that answer your question?
Yes, that's answered my question.
Thank you very much, Beatrice. Femi, you have a question?
All right. Yeah. Good evening, everyone. Can you hear me, please? Hello?
Yes, I can hear you.
Right. Good. It's actually been a very
Yes,
fantastic
please.
session. It has been a fantastic session so far. But my question really is, what's your collaboration like with innovation hubs, right? Because I also believe that this initiative can actually be channeled through the innovation hubs as well too. Is there a way that the innovation hubs can actually play in this initiative? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Femi. So we are actually TechWestern Academy. We're actually part of the innovation ecosystem, and we belong to the Innovation Support Network that consists of over 130 innovation hubs in Nigeria, and we're also part of the international one, the AfriLabs. So we've also made this opportunity available within the network. So hubs within those community can get in touch with the schools within their community and support the schools in providing these resources. So the resources also will be made available to those schools within those communities, so they can get connected with those communities and the schools within their communities across Nigeria. Does that answer your question, Femi? All right, thank you. Do we have more questions?
Itero, we have a question in the chat.
Carol, you were trying to add something.
So we have a question in the chat which says, for schools in remote areas that are having power challenge, how can they develop what task has been given to them? So do you want to explain what you will be sending out to more remote schools?
So for remote schools, they would have more of the postcards. So they'll have printed copies of the postcard that they can paste in their classroom. So the way this has been redesigned is such that when the students are thinking around the attributes, they can write it in their notebooks that they use regularly in the school. And then they just need to have a few copies of the general postcards that can be placed in the classrooms, and then they work with that to think around the attributes that they have. So yes, we have considered schools in remote areas. So those would have printed copies of the resources that they can paste in their classrooms. Yes, Dallas, you have a question. You're lifting your hand.
Yes, give me. How can we get this charts that we can paste in the class whatsoever the students take?
Sorry, I didn't get your question. Can you take that again?
I said, how can we get, where can we get the charts that we can paste them in the class that the students can use?
You're asking when you would get the resources for the students, or when you could join the chat group?
No,
okay, so the resources for the students. So it will be made available. So our plan is to have that available from next term, because some schools are not in session, some are in session, some are writing exams. So we want to start next term in September. So those resources will be available in September for when school resumes.
Yes, okay. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Dallas.
You're welcome.
Do we have more questions? Okay, like I mentioned, the resources will be made available. The recordings of this session will be available at the end of the session. We will send it to you via emails. And then we will also drop our emails here. If you want to be added to the group, or if you would want to ensure that your emails are captured and so that you get the resources, I've dropped our email address there, community@tqstem.org. And please send us a mail, or if you have schools that you think would benefit from this within your community, please share that here. So Carol, just before we go, and before we move on to the next step, I want us to do something really quick. It'd be great if we could all turn on our videos, and then we will take a picture of this session, and then we'll continue, and then we'll have some more insights or inputs or any other feedback from Carol and Joe. So could we please turn on our videos just so that we could take a group picture?
Can we smile too?
Yes, we'll just do that really quickly. Can we turn on our videos? Okay.
Hello.
Okay. Yes, please. I didn't get your question. Can we please turn on our videos?
I did not ask a question.
You want to ask a question?
No, ma, no, ma.
Just that really quick videos. Okay. So Carol, is there anything you would like to add?
So, as well as the recording of this session, we will also provide a short 5-minute description of how to run the session, run STEM Person of the Week in your schools. And we'll also provide a short introduction to how you might share this with other people in your school if you would like more people than just yourself to take part.
Awesome.
But I'd just also like to thank you all for coming. It's been a privilege to share across the seas information, and we're very excited to see how the STEM Person of the Week is implemented across the states of Nigeria.
Thank you so much, Carol. It's been a pleasure having you here. Thank you, Joe. Joe, do you want to say something? Any last words?
Just thank you very much for your time this evening. It's been lovely talking to you. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, everyone, once again. It's been a pleasure. The recordings would be shared, and then like we had said, we'll send the registration link if you would want to onboard your school to ensure your school gets the resources. And then have other skills like can we please put our mics on?
Itaro, I think you're muted now as well. I can't hear you.
Sorry about that. I think I got muted. Okay, so thank you very much. Like I said, the resources would be shared, and then in September to start the new session, you have those resources there. And if you'd like to join our different groups, just so that you have access to it, you'll get that also in the email that will be shared. So thank you very much once again, everyone. We look forward to connecting with you and providing you the resources and seeing how those resources are, the impacts of those resources in your different schools. And we hope to broaden the knowledge and awareness of careers for our students in our different communities. So thank you very much, everyone. Have a lovely evening. Thank you.
You are welcome, and you too. Thank you, ma.
Thank you very much, ma.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you much, ma.
Thank you. Thank you very much for this program. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Otto. It's been awesome.
Thank you very much, ma. That's great to hear from you.
Thank you very much, ma. Enjoy your day.
Hi.
Hello, everyone.
Hi, everybody. Is everybody around?
Oh.